In 1981. The cold autumn light couldn't extinguish the vitality of the people. The bustling crowds in the market were filled with noise as Luna pushed through, carefully avoiding the spoiled vegetable leaves scattered on the ground, hurrying home with her basket of vegetables. In her past life, her admission letter had been delivered to her doorstep, only to be hidden by her mother-in-law. It wasn't until the deadline had passed that Luna discovered it. With no other choice, she had to give up her chance to attend school, making it one of the regrets of her past life. Turning down to streets, Luna paused for a breath in front of her house. Not long after, the postman arrived on his bicycle, placing the heavy admission letter in her hands. The young man in his military green coat smiled brightly and said, "Congratulations, Comrade Luna." Luna held the neatly wrapped admission letter, nodding in acknowledgement with a feeling of great pride. "Thank you, comrade. You've worked hard." After waving the postman off, she returned home and opened the door. Her eyes immediately caught the bright red characters pasted on the refrigerator, and the old black and white television with its antennas ending up made her momentarily feel disoriented. She placed the basket in the kitchen, glancing at her sleeping mother-in-law through the beaded curtain, her emotions complex. Reborn from the 21st century back to the end of 1981, her third year of marriage to Alvin. She still felt a strange disorientation after all this time. In her past life, Luna married Alvin. For their marriage, she gave up the chance to return to the city as an intellectual youth, only for her mother-in-law to secretly hide her admission letter, causing her to miss out on a chance to study at Tsinghua University. Yet, she bore no resentment, taking care of her mother-in-law without question. But her efforts were met with nothing but a cold formality from Alvin. She had believed that Alvin's nature was reserved, that he never smiled at anyone, not even his own wife. In her past life, she toiled self-sufficiently for 50 years, until Alvin passed away, leaving behind only the elderly her and his never-married younger brother to sort through his belongings. It was then that she discovered a marriage certificate hidden in a cabinet. The certificate wasn't hers. It was for another woman, Chloe. A woman with two thick braids, resting her head on Alvin's shoulder, smiling brightly at the camera. The back of the photo read, "The love of this life." In that moment, Luna finally realized that Alvin had never loved her. It wasn't that he couldn't smile or love. He just didn't love her. His heart belonged to Chloe, a love he could never have. For 50 years, they had lived together as strangers, and Alvin had been indifferent to the sacrifices she made and the love she gave. It was all a cruel joke. In her 50s, she tried to get Alvin to officially register their marriage, but he refused. "What's the point? We're already old," he had said. At the time, she felt disappointed. Now, she understood that it had been his way of brushing her off. Alvin had already been married to someone else, and she had been kept in the dark all her life. In this new life, Luna swore not to let that man waste her years. She would go to Beijing and live her own life. Creak. The door opened with a soft creak as Alvin, wearing his military jacket, placed a small paper-wrapped snack on the table. "Comrade Chloe made these pies," Alvin said. "She asked me to bring them to you." In her past life, Alvin had often mentioned that Chloe was his assistant. As a youth sent to the countryside, it hadn't been easy, so Alvin had helped her out more than once. Chloe had sent him numerous things: a kettle on the shelf, a scarf hanging on the coat rack, thick cloth shoes by the door. Dozens of items filled their home, all acts of provocation and subtle gestures from Chloe, which Luna had been blind to. She had poured all her love into Alvin, never suspecting anything. Thinking back to the intimate photo on their marriage certificate, Luna could only feel bitterness now. She was also a youth sent to the countryside, but Alvin never took special care of her. He had only ever been dismissive. Suppressing the pain in her heart, Luna replied, "She's thoughtful." Alvin, oblivious to her emotions, simply gave a calm reminder. "The allowance is there. Once Mom feels better, you can come work at the factory." He took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, and went to the bathroom with a wash basin, completely ignoring the package hidden under the pies. The bright red ribbon and the bold words "admission letter" were so obvious. Yet Alvin paid no attention. When the admission letter was discovered in her past life, Alvin's first instinct had been to defend his mother. He hadn't cared about Luna's cold heart. Luna pushed her emotions aside, carefully unwrapping the package and putting the letter away. She then took out a half-knitted sweater she had been making for Alvin as a New Year's gift. With a swift motion, she tore off the knitting needles and headed outside to the trash bin. In one clean gesture, she threw the half-finished sweater into the pile of garbage. The cold wind of the night could not compare to the chill in Luna's heart. What she threw away was not just her past love, but also the man who had once been in her heart. Both were discarded together. Late at night, Luna lay on her side, staring at the lines on the tablecloth, unable to fall asleep. Suddenly, a large hand reached around her waist. Hot breath brushing against her neck, and a kiss landed on her ear. Luna instinctively pushed him away, avoiding Alvin's closeness. This was the first time she had ever refused him in bed after years of marriage. Alvin, surprised, asked, "You don't want it?" Luna turned her back on him and pulled the blanket over herself. "I have to get up early to take care of things tomorrow. Let's sleep." Knowing that Luna had to care for her bedridden mother every day, Alvin didn't press further. He withdrew his hand and fell asleep. The next morning, the side of the bed where Luna had been was already cold. She made some nourishing porridge and took it to Alvin's mother's room, only to be met with scolding and anger. "Every day it's just porridge. There's no flavor in it. Do you even know how to take care of someone? It's been so long and there's still no sound in your stomach. Marrying you was a waste." The doctor had instructed that her mother-in-law only eat easily digestible liquids while bedridden, which was why Luna made porridge every morning. Unfazed by the cold sarcasm, she thought to herself that in another week, she would be completely free from this family. If her mother-in-law didn't like her, that was fine. She wouldn't have anything to do with her anymore. "Mom, I'm going to study. Call me if you need anything." Her mother-in-law scolded her again. Married and still always holding on to that damn book. Useless. Why not try seeing a Chinese doctor and get some prescriptions? Cure your problems so Alvin's family can have some children. Luna responded calmly, then turned and went back to her room to study. It was there that she unexpectedly found an old piece of paper. It was the marriage application report, for her and Alvin. Signed 3 years ago, on the day they were supposed to register. Alvin had received urgent news from the factory, leaving her standing alone on the street as he rushed back. "Sorry. We can't register today. Let's do it tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. Over time, Alvin never mentioned it again. Luna had tried to remind him several times, but each time Alvin conveniently had something else to do. Eventually, having fulfilled my accept, she stopped asking, treating their relationship as a de facto marriage. How absurd. She had lived her entire life as an unregistered wife, only to discover in the end that Alvin had indeed been married, just not to her. Suppressing the bitter feeling in her chest, Luna tore the marriage report to pieces. "We never registered. It'll be easier when I leave." Luna had made up her mind to leave. She began clearing away everything in the house that was tied to her. She tore down the bright red double happiness characters from the furniture, tossed the enamel mugs with the same motif, the red embroidered mander and up quilt covers, and even the birthday gift she had given Alvin over the years all into a large woven bag. These were all things Luna had prepared with care. In their 3 years of marriage, Alvin had never once used them. There was no reason to keep them anymore. Without the slightest hesitation, she discarded everything that no longer belonged. The heavy bag landed at the garbage station with a dull thud. As she looked around the now bare room, Luna's gaze settled on the wedding photo hanging above the bed. She was wearing a neat army green cotton coat. Alvin, a crisp military overcoat. Her smile was radiant, her body leaning toward him, while he sat upright, lips pressed in a thin line, eyes distant. Recalling the wedding photo of his previous life with Chloe, Luna thought to herself that Alvin must have been reluctant even then. She stepped on the bedside table, took down the frame, and slipped the photo out. Then, let out a low sigh. Opening the drawer, she retrieved a pair of scissors and carefully aligned the blades between their facings. Snip. The photo split cleanly in two. a single cut severing everything between them. That evening, after Alvin showered, he finally noticed that the house looked different. His brows furrowed slightly as his eyes landed on the empty wall above the bed. "Where's the photo that was here?" Without looking up from tidying the desk, Luna replied evenly. "One corner got chipped. So I didn't hang it back up." Alvin nodded absently. "I'll fix it sometime." Setting down the wash basin, he glanced around the now sparse room and asked, "What happened to the rest of the stuff?" Luna answered with the excuse she'd already prepared. "There was too much clutter around the house. I threw out some old things. We'll get new ones for the new year." "All right then. When the time comes, I'll take you to the market to pick some out." As if that brief promise counted as affection, the man said no more and went to chat with his mother. Luna's hand stilled. She watched his retreating figure in silence. Alvin, she thought. Some things, once broken, can never be mended. That night, Luna lay down and closed her eyes. It was a long while before she heard Alvin's footsteps draw near. He climbed into bed, lying on the outer side, his faint breathing steady and shallow. They only drew close when they were intimate. On ordinary nights, there were no embraces. No kisses, only the vast space between them. Like the Milky Way, seemingly near, yet impossibly far. Luna turned her head slightly. In sleep, Alvin's brows were knitted tight, as if troubled by some unseen worry. Perhaps it was because she occupied the place beside him. Keeping him from being with Chloe, even sharing a bed with her, must have felt like a burden. Burying the ache in her chest, Luna reminded herself silently, soon she would leave. She would give them her blessing and reclaim her freedom. The next morning, after serving breakfast to her mother-in-law, Luna placed a brand new calendar on the table. The red numbers caught the eye immediately. When Alvin came out and saw it, a faint discomfort flickered in his heart. "Why'd you suddenly buy a calendar at the end of the year?" "Just to check my fortune sometimes," Luna said casually as she ate, "and to remind myself of important dates." Alvin frowned, putting on his jacket. "We live in modern times now. Don't get caught up in those old superstitions." Grabbing his keys, he added, "The factory's busy lately. Don't bother waiting up for me tonight." The door creaked shut behind him. Luna's gaze lingered on it for a moment before she reached out to smooth the curling edge of the calendar. There was no need for reminders anymore. Soon, let out a low sigh. She wouldn't have to keep a light on for him either. That calendar marked more than days, it marked her departure. January 1st, New Year's Day, would be the start of her new life. A new year. A new beginning. How fitting. She opened the wardrobe and packed her clothes. Then slipped in a few books and stationery. Even after all that, the suitcase was still half empty. 3 years of marriage and her belongings didn't even fill a single case. Comparing that to everything she'd given Alvin, she realized just how little she had ever kept for herself. Tying her hair into a ponytail, she put on her coat and stepped outside. She needed a new ID photo for her job in Beijing. She could take care of it and still have time to shop for groceries afterward. At the Red Star photo studio, Luna walked briskly through the crowd only to stop short at the sight of a bicycle parked out front. The red ribbon on the back seat was unmistakable, Alvin's. Her gaze lifted toward the glass window. Inside, Chloe, her braids neatly tied, was leaning her head affectionately on Alvin's shoulder, laughing brightly. The man beside her was none other than Alvin. The faded image from Luna's memories came vividly to life before her eyes. The colors so sharp they almost stun. In the presence of someone you love, even the coldest ice melts into water. Luna gave a faint shake of her head, letting the last thread of hope inside her break apart. She didn't step inside to interrupt them. She had already decided to leave. There was no point in tormenting herself further. Let them take as many pictures as they pleased. Standing aside, she waited until they finished their photos and walked out, side by side. The gentle light in Alvin's eyes, the shy smile on Chloe's face, they looked far more like a loving couple than she and Alvin ever had. He held up the bicycle, waiting naturally for Chloe to sit on the back seat. She clutched the hem of his jacket as he steadied the handlebars. The red cloth Luna had tied there was now pressed beneath Chloe's weight. It hit her then, in her past life. She had never once sat on Alvin's bicycle. It's improper for a man and woman to ride together like that, he had said. Besides, it's uncomfortable. Once I buy a car, I'll drive you. Watching the two of them disappear down the street, Luna's lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. That back seat had always belonged to the woman he loved. She was only the wife in name, never the one who truly had a place there. Taking a deep breath, Luna steadied herself and walked into the photo studio. She followed the photographer's directions, adjusting her clothes and hair under the soft light. There. That's perfect. Such a fine-looking lady, yes. Hold that smile. Luna couldn't help laughing, her expression blooming naturally. Click. Thank you, she said. At the counter, the cheerful photographer struck up conversation. You know, I just took photos of a lovely young couple earlier. Must be newlyweds, so shy. But they looked perfect together. Having lived an extra lifetime, Luna felt no ripples in her heart. Yes, having fulfilled my obsession, she replied softly. They do suit each other. Luna didn't intend to return for the photos, so she waited half an hour in the store. Her master eventually handed her the carefully wrapped pictures, developed from the old film. Leaving the photo studio, Luna navigated through the bustling crowd on her way back. She stopped by the double-arched bridge, the place where she had first met Alvin. 4 years ago, a woman had accidentally fallen into the river. Luna had jumped in to rescue her, pushing the woman to safety, only to nearly drown herself from exhaustion. It was then that Alvin had reached out, his large hand pulling her to safety, saving her life. The incident was reported in the newspaper, and their story filled an entire page. Youth sent to the countryside rescues a person from the river. The public lends a hand. The spirit of Lei Feng is worth praising. It was from that moment that the factory director and the village officials had kept pushing for their match, leading to their eventual marriage. After applying for their marriage certificate, Alvin took Luna to the big tree by the bridge, where they buried an iron box together. Inside were the pens they had received for their courageous act, engraved with their names. The man had promised, "Comrade Luna, although we've known each other for a short time, the factory director says feelings can be nurtured, and I will take responsibility for you." Looking back now, Luna couldn't help but smile bitterly at how naive she had been back then. Alvin's few empty words of affection had been enough to win her over, convincing her to love him for life. He had already had someone he loved but could not have, yet he had deceived her, claiming that love could be cultivated. How laughable! If only she had known the truth back then, she would never have married him. Luna bit her lip as she approached the now withered tree by the bridge, brushing aside the dead leaves to find the small mound of earth where they had buried the box years ago. Her hands were soon covered in mud and dust, but she finally unearthed a rusty iron box with a stone. She gently lifted the corroded lid. The pens inside were also rusted beyond recognition, and their names had become barely legible. Taking out her pen, Luna raised her arm and swiftly threw it into the river. Splash! Things that are broken should be discarded, whether it's a pen or feelings. She casually buried the items back in the ground, then pressed her foot down hard a few times before heading home to cook for her mother-in-law. After a busy night, Luna woke up the next morning to an empty side of the bed. Alvin hadn't returned all night. Luna gave it a brief glance but didn't dwell on it. His heart wasn't here, and it didn't matter if he came back. Alone in the bed, Luna felt strangely at peace. Having lived 2 lifetimes, she didn't want to share a bed with him anymore. After delivering breakfast to her mother-in-law, Luna quickly got dressed, putting on her military coat and stepping out the door. 3 years ago, a new policy allowed the youth sent to the countryside to return to the city. Many of them, like Luna in her past life, had struggled with the decision. Now, only a few were left who had stayed behind. Upon hearing that Luna had been accepted into university, her friends invited her to a celebratory dinner, which also served as a farewell. During the meal, they all raised their glasses. "Congratulations, Comrade Luna, for your hard work and your acceptance into Tingshui University. You're truly an inspiration. May your youth be as bright as spring, and may your academic pursuits bring you success. Congratulations on entering the halls of higher education." Luna stood up repeatedly, drinking to their health and thanking them. As the atmosphere became livelier, someone inquired about her family. The journey to Beijing is long. Will Alvin go with you? Luna's heart skipped a beat. She smiled and shook her head. The factory director needs him here. He can't leave. She had once given up the outside world and her youthful years for Alvin. But all she had received in return was empty formality. Alvin had attachments here. There was no way he would give up his position to go to Beijing with her. For the sake of her dreams and future, she was determined to leave. To be apart doesn't lessen the love, even if you're far away. I believe your bond will remain strong. Serving the country in our own fields. Isn't that also a form of dedication? Her classmates, unaware, toasted her in good spirits. Luna smiled lightly, sipping her tea and letting the thoughts swirl in her mind. Her eyelids drooping to hide the emotions within. As the evening wore on, the sky darkened. Kevin, the team leader, insisted on walking Luna home. They walked side by side along the cobblestone path, the cold moonlight casting long shadows of their figures. Luna felt a strange sense of disorientation. In 50 years of marriage, she had never walked side by side with Alvin like this. For so long, she had only watched Alvin from behind, trailing in his footsteps, always chasing after his shadow. She had been the humble follower in this relationship, but now, she had made up her mind to leave. She would become her own light and led herself forward. Kevin glanced at Luna from the corner of his eye. Under the moonlight, she looked so captivating, her talent and character shining brightly. He felt a sense of regret. Maybe after this, he would never meet such an excellent youth again. As they neared the compound, they turned a corner and saw Alvin and Chloe walking out of the yard together. Chloe wore a floral jacket, and they were laughing and chatting in a cheerful atmosphere. Luna instinctively wanted to avoid them, even though she was Alvin's wife in name. At that moment, she felt like an outsider, as if she were a third party. What's wrong? Kevin noticed Luna's reaction. Before Luna could respond, Chloe tripped on a step and almost fell. Alvin was quick to catch her. The anxious look on Alvin's face and the way he held her made Luna's heart tighten. At that moment, Alvin's eyes met hers. Just then, let out a low sigh. Auntie from the neighboring yard happened to witness the scene and scolded loudly. Comrade Chloe, you need to keep some distance from this married man. Don't tarnish the reputation of our compound. Another aunt, snacking on sunflower seeds, added, That's right. Alvin's wife is right here. What are you two doing? Hugging and laughing? Chloe's face turned pale, and she immediately moved away from Alvin, creating some distance between them. Alvin shot a stern glance at the two women, his face expressionless but his aura cold and intimidating. The two women quickly fell silent, pretending they hadn't seen anything, and quickly returned to their own homes. Turning back to look at Luna, standing a short distance away with a serious young man beside her, Alvin felt an inexplicable discomfort. The space between them seemed too much to ignore. Their eyes met, and the atmosphere grew tense. Chloe stepped forward to explain. Comrade Luna, please don't misunderstand. Alvin and I only share a simple comradeship. Luna smiled faintly. I understand. Comrades should help each other. She turned to Kevin, who had a complicated expression, and said, Thank you for walking me home. We'll catch up some other time. Kevin bit his lip, wanting to say more, but glanced at Alvin and simply said, Goodbye. Before walking off, Chloe didn't stay either. She picked up her bag and walked down a different alley. Alvin, watching her disappear into the dark alley, felt a twinge of worry and was about to chase after her when his eyes landed on Luna standing alone. He hesitated, then stood still, his thoughts in turmoil. They silently walked home, one ahead of the other. Alvin finally broke the silence with an explanation. Comrade Chloe just came by to drop off some sausages she made. If anyone starts gossiping, you'll need to explain. Luna responded calmly, not asking any questions. But Alvin couldn't help himself and asked, Who is that man with you? One of my classmates is having a gathering today to celebrate getting into college. Luna explained briefly. Alvin furrowed his brows. Let them gather. You're a married woman. Why do you need to join the fuss? Luna froze for a moment and lowered her gaze. If he cared even a little bit, he'd know that she was the only one in the entire courtyard who had gotten into college. But his mind was occupied with Chloe. If the Luna from her past life were here, she would have felt hurt and wronged. But now, Luna felt no stirrings in her heart. After all, Alvin didn't care. There was no need for her to tell him that she was going to Beijing for college. There won't be any more gatherings, she said flatly. After she went to Beijing, there would be no more opportunities to join them. That night, the biting cold wind made the window screen rattle. Luna lay on her side in bed, listening to Alvin getting up to close the window. Then he quietly lay down beside her, his large hand resting on her waist, making her instinctively pull away from his touch. After being rejected so rarely, Alvin sensed something was wrong and asked, "What's going on with you lately? Why are you being so distant?" Luna opened her mouth but paused for a moment before saying softly, "You're overthinking. I've just been a little tired lately." Alvin gazed at her still figure, feeling like something had slipped out of his control. He felt an uneasy frustration building up inside him as he reached over to pull her slender waist toward him. "I'll hold you while I sleep." Luna stiffened in his arms but held back from pushing him away. That night, Alvin slept soundly, while Luna lay awake, unable to sleep, the breath against her back. The closeness of his embrace was something she had never experienced in the 50 years of her past life. As New Year's Eve approached, there was an overwhelming number of tasks at the factory, and Alvin spent several consecutive days coming and going without a word. Alvin's mother, worried about her son, noticed Luna's gaze, but Luna had long gotten used to it. Alvin was busy working alongside Chloe every day, likely eager to finish quickly so he could lighten her load. Luna didn't feel disappointed anymore because, without expectations, there was no room for disappointment. For the past few days, she had been taking care of Alvin's mother, fulfilling her role as a daughter-in-law, and clearing away all traces of her presence in the house. She was waiting for the 1st of January to board the train to Beijing. Before she left, she would erase every mark of her life in this courtyard with her own hands. Flipping to the last page of the calendar, the large red numbers 31 jumped out at her. One more day, the final countdown. Luna received a call from Tingshui University. She hurried to the communications room to pick up the phone. "Hello, Luna? This is the freshman office of Tingshui University in Beijing. We will be arranging a bus to pick up new students at Beijing Station at 8 a.m. on New Year's Day. Have you communicated this with your family?" Luna's hand trembled slightly as she held the phone. She answered promptly, "Don't worry. Everything is ready. I'm ready to depart anytime." On the other end of the line, the teacher expressed reassurance. "That's great. Once you step into the world of research, be prepared to prioritize the country over personal matters. The nation needs talents like you. We'll be waiting for you in Beijing." After hanging up the phone, Luna stood there for a long moment, still trying to calm the emotions swelling inside her. To dedicate herself to the country, it was the fulfillment of a dream spanning to lifetimes. All the suffering and grievances from the past would fade into the past. Luna felt lighthearted, a smile tugging at her lips as she returned home. But as soon as she entered the house, she saw Alvin had come back. On the table were several gift boxes, all bearing the factory's logo. Seeing the brightness in her face, Alvin instinctively asked, "What's the occasion? Why are you so happy?" Luna's smile faded, and she replied, "A relative called. We chatted for a bit." Alvin nodded absent-mindedly, gesturing to the gift boxes. "These are New Year's gifts. Don't forget to put them away." Luna remained calm, saying nothing more. She didn't have any relatives left at home except for a younger uncle who worked outside, so who could have spent money on long-distance calls to check on her? Alvin, having fulfilled men, oblivious to her stillness, swept his gaze over the empty house before taking out his wallet and shrugging on his coat. "I'll take you out to buy some new things for the house. We'll have a nice family meal tonight." Luna was about to respond but was interrupted by a knock at the door. Alvin frowned as he opened the door to find a worker from the factory. "Alvin, Chloe asked me to find you." Luna saw the change in Alvin's expression as his eyes flickered when they landed on her. "Sweetheart, I need to step out for something urgent. If you need anything, Huntington, just buy it. I'll come back later to have dinner with you and Mom," he said, handing her a bundle of ration coupons and money, before quickly leaving. "Alvin," Luna called softly. His hurried footsteps didn't stop. He called back quickly. "I'll try to be back soon." Luna stood still, watching his retreating figure, swallowing the words she had wanted to say. "Be careful. Go ahead." She had planned for this last day to have a proper ending and amicable closure to their marriage. But Alvin didn't fulfill his promise. Even the idea of going out together was just a casual remark. The market was bustling with joy, and everywhere exuded a lively atmosphere. Many men were shopping with their wives, laughing and chatting, something to be envious of. Luna, alone in her past life, was still alone in this one. She ventured out on her own to buy things for the house, filling it to the brim in anticipation of Alvin's return. She bought what was needed as usual, and amidst the vibrant displays in the shop windows, her eyes were drawn to a fiery red scarf. That vibrant red, waving like a flag under the early winter sun, filled her heart with joy. Luna noted the design, tucked away the money Alvin had given her, and with the money she had earned from writing, bought the same color yarn. She would knit herself a bright red scarf, a symbol of the new life that was about to begin. The countdown had reached its final 12 hours. Luna returned home, carrying the groceries and heading straight for the kitchen. Alvin's mother, leaning on her cane, got out of bed but couldn't find Alvin. She hurriedly asked, "Why are you the only one home? Where's my son?" Luna swiftly prepared the vegetables and spoke calmly. "He had something urgent to take care of and went out." Alvin's mother grumbled. "It's almost the holiday, and he's still so busy. Why don't you keep an eye on your husband? You're really no help." Luna ignored the biting tone, quickly finishing the preparation, lighting the stove, with the sound of fireworks exploding outside. She brought dish after dish to the table and helped Alvin's mother sit down. "It's already time for dinner. Where is Alvin?" she asked, listening to the loud festivities next door, her eyes flickering with frustration at the empty house. Luna placed a piece of beef into Alvin's mother's bowl and softly said, "Let's eat while we wait. It'll go to waste if it gets cold." Alvin's mother picked up her chopsticks and heaped a large portion of pork and chicken legs into her bowl, ignoring her condition and indulging in the greasy food. Luna couldn't help but think of the complications Alvin's mother had suffered from high blood pressure in her previous life, with no one around to remind her. She hesitated for a moment before gently advising, "You should eat less greasy food. Try to stick to lighter meals. Eat more vegetables. And avoid too much salt or sugar." Alvin's mother impatiently interrupted her. "Why say so much? You're speaking as if you won't be around anymore. Don't worry about me. Worry about yourselves. You've been married for 3 years and still no sign of anything. It's really strange." Luna fell silent and continued eating, quickly clearing the table. She then took out a needle and thread, starting to knit a scarf. Alvin's mother didn't think much of it, assuming that Luna was knitting clothes for her son, as she had done every year. Time passed slowly, and the noise from outside began to subside. Yet, the door remained eerily silent, with no sign of anyone coming in. Alvin's mother, leaning on her cane, came out of her room, frowning as she looked at the clock. "It's almost midnight. Why hasn't Alvin come back for the reunion dinner? What's keeping him so busy?" Seeing that Alvin's mother was still worried, Luna decided to tell her the truth. "Comrade Chloe asked for him. He probably won't be able to make it back for a while." At the mention of Chloe's name, Alvin's mother's face changed. She remained silent for a long moment, then let out a low sigh. With a sigh, turned and walked back to her room, still leaning on her cane. Countdown, 6 hours. Luna checked her suitcase one last time, confirming that everything was packed. By morning, she would be ready to leave with her suitcase in tow. In the remaining time, she sat in her room, knitting a red scarf, inspired by the design she had seen in her previous life. Gradually, a beautiful scarf took shape in her hands. The sky began to brighten as the first rays of the sun began to rise. Countdown, 1 hour. Luna put on her military coat and tied the bright red scarf around her neck. She reached up to flip the calendar, revealing January 1st. Taking a pen, she circled the date and left a note. She then took a final glance at the house, the one she had lived in for 2 lifetimes. Carrying her suitcase and acceptance letter, she walked out the door without a second glance, heading toward the rising sun, the bright path to serving her country. On the other side, Chloe's fever had finally subsided, and she was now awake, looking up at the tall man standing by her bedside. Alvin, seeing that she was better, relayed the doctor's instructions before preparing to leave. Chloe, sensing his departure, weakly called out, "I've caused you trouble, Comrade Alvin." Alvin shook his head, signaling that it was no trouble. "Get some rest and take care of yourself. If you need anything, let me know." Chloe called him back again, biting her lip apologetically. "I'm sorry for delaying your reunion dinner. I'll come by to thank you properly next time." Alvin instinctively declined. Ever since Luna had seen him helping Chloe the other day, his gut told him that Luna didn't want Chloe coming to their home, even though Luna hadn't said a word about it. That night, Alvin felt restless. His right eyelid twitched constantly, and the old saying kept running through his mind, "Left eye twitches for wealth, right eye for disaster." He felt anxious and uneasy, quickening his pace as he rode his bike home. Passing by a flower shop, Alvin unconsciously stopped and bought a bouquet of begonia flowers, intending to bring them to Luna. He thought it might help ease the guilt of not being able to accompany her for the reunion dinner the previous night. He hadn't returned as promised, and that was his mistake. But he believed Luna loved him so much that a small gesture would make everything right. Besides, Chloe didn't have any friends or family around. If something had happened while she was sick, it would have been terrible. Next year, he swore he would stay home and spend the new year with her. Alvin parked and walked into the house, but the silence made him frown. Something didn't feel right. When he entered the room, he didn't see Luna's slender figure. Instead, the space felt emptier than usual, as if Luna's presence had disappeared entirely. His heart tightened. He stepped back into the living room and his gaze fell on the glaring number 1 on the calendar. Next to it was a neat, delicate note written in Luna's handwriting. The words pierced his eyes like daggers. The begonia flower slipped from his hand and fell to the floor. "Alvin, we no longer have any relationship. We will never see each other again in this lifetime." The fresh begonia flowers fell to the ground, their delicate petals scattered everywhere. The string in Alvin's heart snapped completely. In a panic, he rushed into the room and opened the wardrobe. Nothing. He turned to open the desk drawer. Still nothing. He moved to the storage cabinet. But again, there was nothing. Everything related to Luna was gone. It was as if she had completely disappeared from his life, leaving no trace. "What's all this noise?" Alvin's mother, startled by the commotion in the house, hobbled over with her cane and found her son standing still in the middle of the room. His face grim, the room a mess. "Who on earth has come into our house?" Alvin's mother, unaware of what was happening, assumed they had been robbed and yelled at Luna, asking where she had gone. "Where is she? Why isn't she here?" Only when Alvin heard her name did he snap back to reality. He fought to suppress the unease and panic in his heart, trying to calm his mother. He quickly began cleaning up the room and removed the calendar. He couldn't believe Luna had just left. She loved him so much. There was no way she would leave him. It was the holiday, and with Luna gone from the house, Alvin had to go buy groceries for his mother. He grabbed a basket and headed to the market, feeling miserable. The bustling market was so crowded that he had no idea where to begin. He had never known what Luna usually bought, so he just picked up whatever he saw. Leaving the market, Alvin's pants were dirty from being stepped on, and his shoes were covered with rotten vegetable leaves. He looked disheveled. Lost in thought, he pushed his bike home, unable to stop thinking about how much Luna must have worked to take care of the Alvin family over the years. When he got home, he placed the groceries on the table and went to take a shower. Afterward, he returned to the kitchen, only to find the groceries untouched and the kitchen empty. He froze, his hand reaching out as if to call for Luna. But then he stopped. The emptiness in the room hit him like a ton of bricks. He made a few quick dishes. And Alvin's mother stared at him, fuming. Where has Luna gone? When Alvin heard her name, his heart sank. He fell silent, then quietly responded, "She had to go back to her hometown for something." Alvin's mother was even angrier now. "She left without saying a word. Does she not care about me? Her mother-in-law?" Alvin didn't respond. He ate a few bites but soon lost his appetite, his clothes heavy with the smell of cooking oil and smoke. After dinner, Alvin's mother, seeing her son's despondency, tried to clean the dishes herself. But Alvin, despite his mood, stepped in and washed them. He could see the slow, tired movements of his mother. So he finished cleaning up and went to his room, washed up briefly, and lay down on the bed. That night, he could not sleep. The emptiness on the other side of the bed, the entire room, made him feel more miserable than ever. The stark contrast between what he had lost and what was now missing only intensified his longing for Luna. The next morning, Alvin woke up early and bought meat pies for his mother. He asked the neighbor's wife to help take care of her, then hurried off to work, preoccupied with his thoughts. Alvin kept zoning out while working, and Chloe called his name several times. But he didn't respond. This surprised her. When it was time to leave, for the first time, Alvin desperately wanted to finish his work and get home. Perhaps Luna had already calmed down and was waiting for him. "Alvin," Chloe called, catching up with him. Panting, Alvin hesitated for a moment, stopping reluctantly, but his urgency remained unchanged. Chloe assumed he was waiting for her. And with a smile, she said, "I made some meat-filled dumplings. I really appreciated you taking care of me that night." "Alvin, it must have been hard on you." "I just wanted to." Alvin, having to land sorry, half listening, could no longer tolerate his anxious desire to get home and interrupted her. "Sorry, Chloe. I need to get home now. We'll talk next time." He turned and left. But then, as if remembering something, he waved awkwardly and added, "Sorry. I can't walk you today. Go home early." Chloe watched his retreating figure, anger and confusion swirling in her. This was the first time he had rejected her. Why? It couldn't possibly be because of Luna, could it? Alvin pedaled furiously, only stopping at traffic lights, sweat beading on his forehead. "Alvin?" He turned around to see a stranger, the same man he had seen walking with Luna before. Kevin, holding his bike, looked at him seriously and said, "I don't think it's my place to say this, but I hope you'll cherish Luna. She's such a wonderful person. You can't let her down." Alvin froze, a wave of anger rushing to his head as he heard those words. The awkwardness and guilt of being crushed and made his face harden. Coldly, he muttered, "It's none of your business," and pedaled away. He parked his bike in the courtyard, anger still boiling inside him. As he pushed open the door and searched the house, the emptiness of it made him feel completely cold inside. Alvin's mother was overjoyed that her son had returned so early. But then she began complaining about Luna and not being home yet. For the first time, Alvin found his mother's voice irritating. In a hoarse voice, he said, "Luna's gone." "Gone?" Alvin's mother's eyes widened, and she stumbled forward, leaning on her cane. "What do you mean? Gone? Where did she go? She's your wife. How could she just leave?" Alvin's mind felt empty. He couldn't quite grasp what was happening. But the word wife from his mother's mouth burned him. From next door, the neighbor heard Alvin's mother shouting and, holding a dishcloth, she walked over. "Isn't your wife the one who got into college? Everyone knew about it a month ago. She should have left a few days ago." Alvin staggered backward, as if struck by a heavy blow. Everyone knew? His mind was blank. Why didn't he know? The embarrassment hit him like a wave. The conversation continued. "She got into college?" Alvin's mother asked, confused, as she hobbled to the door to inquire further. The neighbor found it strange. "Your wife got into Tingshui University in Beijing, and you didn't know?" Another ant, who had been eating sunflower seeds, chimed in, without a low sigh, amused by the situation, watching Alvin's mother's face go pale. The neighbor, remembering how Alvin had behaved with other women, added with a hint of disdain, I knew it. Last time, I saw your son flirting with other girls. And now look. Luna's had enough and is leaving to serve the country. Shut up. Alvin's mother shouted, nearly falling as she slammed the door shut, trying to catch her breath. Alvin, his face ashen, returned to his room. The feeling of being abandoned and made his eyes burn with emotion. He sank to the floor, rubbing his hair, trying desperately to remember when it all started. The bare walls of the room made him pause. Every little detail he had once dismissed came rushing back. Was it the day they took their wedding photo? Alvin scratched his head, even pulling out several strands of hair. Before calming down enough to gather his thoughts, he grabbed the remaining paper and pen, his hands trembling as he wrote a letter to Luna. Meanwhile, on the train nearing Beijing station, Luna stood at the door of the carriage, her small suitcase clutched tightly. Following the crowd, through the gaps, she could see the icy snowstorm outside. It was January, and Beijing was blanketed in snow. Following the conductor's instructions, Luna struggled to lift her head and look for the station sign, then followed the crowd to the exit. The misty city of Beijing greeted her eyes. The cold air and snowflakes hit her face. Without time to dwell on the new life ahead, Luna stood in the middle of the crowd, unsure of where to go. The bustling noises of vendors shouting and phones ringing filled her ears. Tour bus over here. A group leader waved a big flag, shouting loudly. Hello? Hello. The signal's bad. I'll call you back later. Someone shouted into a large mobile phone, looking like a business elite. Taking the bus? Follow me. Another person with a megaphone shouted. Luna was overwhelmed by the chaos. Her short stature made it hard to navigate through the crowd. She struggled to make her way out of the platform, only to realize she still had no idea where to go. Suddenly, someone shouted from the left. Pickpocket. A pickpocket is running. Before Luna could react, someone knocked into her. The force was so strong she lost her balance and stumbled toward the side. Just as Luna was about to fall to the ground, a strong hand grabbed her arm and pulled her up, saving her from being trampled by the crowd. If she had fallen, she could have been seriously injured. Thank you, comrade. Luna, her hands sweaty as she clutched her suitcase, confirmed everything was intact before breathing a sigh of relief. A warm, pleasant voice came from above. No need to thank me. Luna, follow me this way. Luna's heart skipped a beat. She looked up, surprised to see the tall man parting the crowd in front of her. When her eyes fell on the red scarf on his arm, she dared to follow him. It was marked with Tingshui University volunteer. Suppressing the doubts in her heart, Luna followed him without interruption to a large red bus. After confirming it was the Tingshui University shuttle bus, and that the driver's credentials were valid, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. You're the last one. Please get on first. The man's voice echoed again. He closed the luggage compartment and led the way onto the bus. Luna then realized that he had efficiently taken care of her luggage for her, and couldn't help but admire how quick and capable he was, truly a senior from the same department. The bus was crowded, and Luna found an empty seat. By chance, she sat next to a female classmate, who kindly let Luna sit by the window while she took the aisle seat. Luna thanked her, feeling quite grateful. As the bus slowly began to move, Luna gazed out at the small buildings outside, feeling slightly dazed. She had really come to Beijing, the capital, a city where every inch of land was precious. It was only 1982, but the city's infrastructure already resembled something from the 21st century. Many of the roads were still under construction, yet the energy of the people, full of enthusiasm, was palpable even from inside the bus. Luna smiled, loosening her scarf a bit to get some fresh air. The bus was much warmer than outside. So handsome. How can someone be this good looking? Her seatmate whispered, her eyes fixed on the man sitting in front of them. Curious, petting fulfilled man's sigh. Luna followed her gaze and saw only the back of his head. His dark, Slightly long hair rested at his ears. And when he tilted his head, she could see his sharp nose and thick lashes. It was the same senior who had helped her with her luggage earlier. When the classmate noticed Luna was also looking at him, she eagerly leaned closer and whispered, "I was one of the first two board. I overheard the seniors talking. And I found out he's a genius. He's not a senior, he's a professor." Luna's eyes widened in surprise. A professor at such a young age? No wonder it was Tingshui University. After all, where talent abounded. For the rest of the ride, her classmate continued to chatter on. More enthusiastic than Luna had ever encountered. Luna could only listen, occasionally nodding in response. Until the bus came to a stop. Her classmate immediately rushed off in pursuit of the handsome man, never even exchanging names with Luna. Sighing, Luna got off the bus and retrieved her luggage, following the excited crowd into Tingshua's campus. Many students were still around, some riding bikes, others walking, all with youthful and energetic faces. She followed her mentor for quite a distance until they reached the dormitory. Luna was fortunate enough to be assigned to a room on the second floor. This position allowed her to catch some sunlight and wasn't too difficult to climb. The dormitory was small. A 4-person room with bunk beds on either side and a large desk in the center. Her roommates hadn't arrived yet, so she chose the lower bunk on the left. Luna didn't have much with her, so she decided to go out and buy a mat and some toiletries. She didn't have much money, but her mentor had suggested she check out the nearby shops. So she decided to take a walk. Wrapping her red scarf around her neck, Luna headed downstairs. As soon as she stepped out, she collided with a pair of smiling eyes. The familiar face made her freeze in place. "Uncle. Uncle Julian?" The young man before her wore a brown long coat, a striped shirt underneath, and a thick brown vest. His bangs hung loosely over his brows, while the wind blew them aside to reveal sharp eyebrows and his forehead. Gold-rimmed glasses softened his long eyes, and his overall appearance was so striking that nearby female students couldn't seem to move aside. Luna was stunned. The person who had helped her with her luggage and led her to the bus was her uncle? In her previous life, she had seen photos of her uncle when he was young. And he looked exactly the same. The only difference was the clothes he wore, but he was still as handsome as ever. Even when she had seen him later in life, he was still full of life. Never married, and remained a clean and dashing elderly man. Upon hearing her words, the man paused for a moment, then smiled brightly and walked toward her. "Ah, you still remember me? My dear niece." Luna was taken aback by his sudden approach and felt a bit embarrassed by his teasing words. She pursed her lips and quickly reminded him. "Comrade Julian. Please don't speak like that." Julian flashed a smile, giving a military salute. "Understood, Comrade Luna." The tension lifted, and Luna felt a sense of familiarity. As though the years apart had not left a gap between them. She casually asked, "Uncle, Hendao, what are you doing here in Beijing?" Julian began walking with her. "After you went to the countryside, Grandpa and Grandma both passed away. I graduated from Nanjing University, went on to do a postdoc, and Tingshui University accepted me. I've been here for 3 years now." Luna felt a pang of sadness as she followed him. Uncle Julian was adopted by her grandparents, while she had been born from her mother's difficult delivery. In the end, they weren't blood relatives, but both had grown up with their grandparents and were familiar with each other. Noticing her melancholic mood, Julian gently reminded her, "It's okay. I moved them here, so we can visit their graves during Qingming Festival." Luna nodded, and the two of them continued walking to the market. With limited funds, Luna bought only a few necessities. Julian took the items from her hands without letting her carry anything. Luna couldn't argue with him and instinctively wanted to buy him a drink, only to realize that in this era, freshly made milk tea didn't exist. The thought of it suddenly struck her, and she made a mental note of it. When they returned to the dorm, Luna said her goodbyes and went upstairs to arrange her room. Her roommates had arrived. They were from various places and were all very friendly and enthusiastic, which made Luna, who had lived to lifetimes, feel more alive than ever. "Comrade Luna, I've been meaning to ask, Your scarf is so beautiful. Is it a new trend? One of her roommates shyly asked, her eyes bright with admiration. Yeah. I want one too. It looks so fluffy. Warm. And pretty. Another roommate chimed in. Luna touched the scarf around her neck in surprise. The knitting technique was different from their thicker styles. And it did indeed look much better. No wonder people had been eyeing her along the way. In addition to noticing her uncle. She shyly replied. I made this myself. If you like it, I can make a few more for you. Her roommates were taken aback. Some of them were from the city and had never knitted anything themselves. They all thought Luna was incredibly talented. One of them spoke up first. Comrade Luna. I won't take it for free. If you make one for me, I'll buy it from you. Before Luna could respond, the others eagerly spoke up. I want one too. I'll pay 5 yuan. Luna was surprised. A simple shirt cost only 3 yuan. And this scarf could sell for 5 yuan? Considering the price of rice was only 0.14 yuan per pound. It seemed absurd. Seeing the hesitation on the other roommates' faces, Luna quickly reassured them. That's too expensive. You don't need to pay so much. After a moment of thought, one roommate hesitated before saying, how about 3 yuan? Luna nodded and came up with a solution to make sure everyone was happy. For the roommate willing to pay 5 yuan, she would knit an extra hat for her. This way, everyone was content. In just a few short days, Luna had earned her first bucket of gold in Beijing. Luna's life was fulfilling. She spent her evenings studying and doing crafts in her dorm. While during the day, she attended classes with her roommates and engaged in discussions about their coursework. Unexpectedly, having fulfilled Ride's session, she also received orders from other female students. Apparently, having fulfilledly, while her roommates were out having fun in the evenings, they had been praising her non-stop. And Luna's social life quickly became quite busy. Luna. Someone's looking for you downstairs. After returning from class and while writing a milk tea recipe plan, Luna paused, since she had saved up some funds. She had started preparing for future plans. She didn't know who would be visiting her during lunch. Luna put on her coat and scarf, hurried downstairs, and saw a familiar figure, Julian. He had changed into a black trench coat, standing tall at the bottom of the stairs. The way he turned his head to look at her made the women peeking from the side gasp in surprise. Luna walked up to him, puzzled, and saw him pull a letter from his pocket and hand it to her. The envelope clearly read, "To my wife. From Alvin." Julian pressed his lips together slightly, the paper in his hand wrinkling, his gaze slightly complex. Luna hadn't expected Alvin to send her a letter, let alone address her as, my wife. She reached out to take it. Thank you, Uncle, hadn't fulfilled and say, for bringing this. Who is this? Julian asked calmly. Luna suddenly felt a nervousness, as though she were being questioned by a parent. She quickly explained. Someone from my past. It's no longer important. Julian's gaze lifted, his eyes burning through his gold-rimmed glasses. No longer important. Yet he calls you my wife. How shameless. Luna thought about how Alvin still hadn't pursued the woman he loved, wasting his time sending her letters, and felt a sense of surprise. She didn't think leaving would affect Alvin in any way. Giving him space to pursue his own love seemed like a win-win situation. He is already someone irrelevant to me, she said. Luna really didn't want to open the letter. She didn't want any further connection with Alvin. But she hadn't expected him to send it so soon. Julian noticed her furrowed brows and took the letter back, smiling. Since it's not important, how about I keep it for you? Luna looked at him, surprised. Julian casually stuffed the letter into his pocket and suggested, have you eaten yet? Let me take you to try some authentic Beijing cuisine. After a brief thought, Luna agreed. She had no other plans, so she cheerfully agreed and got ready to leave. Julian stopped her and, pushing a bicycle towards her, called out, take this, or you'll be starving by the time we get there. Luna stared at him as he steadied the bike and looked at her, his eyes sparkling like a young boy. Don't worry. Your uncle is really good with bikes. I won't let you fall. Luna didn't hesitate any longer. And with a smile, she climbed onto the back seat, grabbing his coat as she told him. All right. The ride was even smoother than expected. Julian's tall frame shielded her from the biting cold wind. And Luna had never thought that her first time riding a bicycle would be with her Uncle Julian. Not Alvin. For a moment, she didn't know how to feel, part amused, part helpless, but instead of dwelling on her emotions, she lifted her head to enjoy the snow-covered beauty of Tsinghua University. A view like a poetic painting. At dinner, they talked happily. Luna was surprised to discover how modern Julian's views were. His outlook seemed as if he had lived in the 21st century. He had many valuable suggestions for her milk tea business idea. Fearing she might forget, Luna quickly took out a small notebook to jot down his suggestions. Their pleasant dinner turned into an impromptu business meeting. Julian walked out with the bike, watching Luna stand at the doorway, bathed in warm light. Her side profile, her delicate features softened by the light, and her focused gaze on the notebook, completely unaware of the snow settling in her hair, made his heart soften. He walked over and spoke gently. Luna, how about we have a New Year's dinner together at the end of the month? Luna paused, surprised by his suggestion. Noticing her hesitation, Julian quickly added, we haven't seen each other in a long time. Grandpa and Grandma would love to have the family together for the new year, instead of splitting up like we used to. Luna suddenly recalled her previous life when Uncle Julian had never married. Wasn't he alone every New Year? Eating the New Year's Eve meal by himself? Watching TV alone? She remembered the time she had waited alone for Alvin, buying groceries and cooking meals for his family. Yet still waiting for a man who didn't return when expected. She couldn't help but feel empathy. She smiled at Julian. Then I'll count on you to take care of me during the new year, Uncle. Julian's nervousness melted away, and he broke into a big, bright smile. It's nothing. You'll love my cooking. I'll make sure you eat well. He hopped on his bike, raising his chin and grinning. Hop on. Uncle will take you back to campus. Luna was caught up in his infectious excitement. Smiling, she climbed onto the back, instinctively holding onto his coat. She felt happy, even a little excited about the upcoming new year. When she said goodbye to Julian downstairs in the dorm, her mood was high. She went upstairs, washed up, and sat with her roommates, revising for exams. During her free time, she worked on finalizing her milk tea sales plan. Over the next few days, Luna was often surrounded by female students who had heard about her. They loved her trendy knitted hat and cute gloves, and many of them ordered more scarves from her. Their enthusiasm infectious. Luna's wallet began to fill, and with her newfound inspiration, she discovered the Hongwei Pro Market. There, she bought small pearls at affordable prices and found some inexpensive transparent colorful beads. It was a pleasant surprise, as she also discovered a new business opportunity designing small bracelets and necklaces. The other female students, who couldn't afford luxury brands, eagerly embraced the affordable, stylish little accessories Luna designed. Her fame spread, and her reputation solidified. Even Julian came to order a scarf from Luna. She couldn't refuse. So when she handed it to him, she secretly slipped in a hand-made wooden bracelet with a small tag reading piece. Julian immediately put it on, smiling happily. He looked less like a university professor and more like a young, attractive newcomer, drawing admiring looks from those around him. One day, Luna was leading class with her roommates when one of them, startled, tugged at her sleeve and pointed toward a corner. Luna looked over and froze. Luna stood across from a man and a woman near the teaching building, surrounded by a few onlookers, giving the impression that it was a confession of love. To her surprise, Luna realized the person being confessed to was her Uncle Julian. For just a moment, she was stunned, but then quickly returned to her usual composure. After all, Julian's looks were truly striking, so it wasn't surprising that he was often the subject of confessions. They were standing a bit far away, so Luna could only see the woman standing there for a moment, before suddenly covering her face and running off. Her roommate sighed. I really don't know who such an outstanding guy will end up with. then, let out a low sigh. Her roommate turned and gave Luna a knowing look, her lips curving into a teasing smile. Comrade Luna. I've been seeing you and Julian together a lot lately. Don't tell me this flower has fallen into your hands? Luna's heart skipped a beat. Before she could respond, she saw Julian turning around, walking toward them. The breeze tousled his hair, and his smiling eyes landed directly on her. What are you two talking about? Julian asked with a smile, standing beside them. His tall figure seemed to make the sunlight dim a little. Her roommate's eyes gleamed with curiosity. We were wondering if Julian has someone he likes. Why doesn't he have a partner yet? Luna's heart raced. For a moment, she wasn't sure whether to explain their relationship or stop her roommate's intrusive questions. Julian paused, his gaze flicking briefly to Luna, who seemed anxious. He gave another smile and responded casually. I do. Luna froze, meeting Julian's eyes, which were still full of a smile. She couldn't help but wonder if he had someone he liked. Then why had he remained unmarried in the previous life? Her roommate sighed dramatically. Another handsome guy off the market. I can tell Luna's the lucky one. Luna. The counselor's shout interrupted the conversation. He was panting as he rushed downstairs and approached Luna. Good thing you haven't left. Someone from the communications office called for you. They said it's your husband. Her roommate's eyes wide and in shock as she stared at Luna, clearly surprised. This wasn't what she had expected. Julian's smile faded slightly, a hint of irritation in his eyes. Luna furrowed her brow but still thanked the counselor sincerely. Thank you. He must have gotten the wrong idea. I'm not married. She and Alvin merely lived together. There were no marriage procedures. He had gone to register with someone else. How could Alvin possibly claim to be her husband? The counselor laughed as he caught his breath. Well, perhaps he's a suitor. The communications officer left the phone number for you. You can go check it out. Luna sighed inwardly but nodded in agreement, preparing to follow him. I'll go with you. Julian patted Luna's shoulder and followed her. I'll go study. Her roommate waved in frustration, clearly not daring to involve herself further. Julian and the counselor chatted about the latest research projects, while Luna railed behind them, feeling vexed. She couldn't understand what Alvin was trying to do. Half a month earlier, Alvin had been waiting for Luna's reply ever since he sent the letter, but the response never came. Every day, he rode his bike to the post office, transitioning from hope to disappointment. Even the postal workers had started to recognize him. Isn't this the same address where I delivered your acceptance letter a month and a half ago? Impressive. One of the clerks joked. Alvin couldn't bring himself to smile. After confirming that there was no reply, he rode home against the cold wind. When he saw the light on in his house, a wave of excitement filled him. He hurried to open the door and, smelling the aroma of food, rushed into the kitchen calling Luna's name. But Alvin froze in place when he saw Chloe, wearing an apron, awkwardly standing there. His mother's voice echoed from the other room. What's this about, Luna? Chloe's here helping out. Why are you still thinking about the woman who left us? Alvin stared at Chloe, who was wearing an apron once used by Luna. A sense of discomfort rose in him. What's going on? Chloe wiped her hands and, looking a little embarrassed, spoke in a low voice. I noticed you weren't in a good mood the other day, so I thought you might need some help. When I arrived, I saw that your mother had no one to look after her, so I came in to help. Alvin suppressed the frustration in his heart and nodded. Thank you, Chloe. You really didn't have to. Chloe shyly interrupted him. It's no trouble at all. Seeing her in this state, Alvin didn't feel the same stirring in his heart as before. His thoughts were consumed with Luna. Why hadn't she come back? His mother, however, was oblivious to this, loudly insisting that Chloe stay, urging Alvin to take care of her, as if treating her like his wife. Alvin watched his mother's behavior and Chloe's nervousness. It was hard for him to tell her to leave, so he reluctantly agreed. Chloe stayed at his house, and Alvin drove her home every day. But he no longer felt the same affection he once had for her. Instead, he was only grateful for her help with his mother, giving her extra food rations and money. The women in the neighborhood saw them together and shook their heads. eyeing Alvin's family with suspicion. At first, Alvin comforted himself, thinking that since Luna had left on her own accord, he could now be with Chloe without guilt. But why couldn't he stop thinking about Luna? His interactions with Chloe felt hollow, her smile only reminding him of what he had lost. Recently, the factory had gotten busier, so Alvin took on more work, allowing Chloe to go home earlier to take care of his mother. He stayed late at the factory, working overtime every night. One evening, exhausted from his long day, Alvin returned home and entered his room, only to feel soft arms wrap around his shoulders. Alvin froze, momentarily thinking it was Luna who had returned. Lost in the haze of his emotions, he moved closer to the woman's cheek, but the unfamiliar scent jolted him back to reality. He quickly pushed Chloe away. "We shouldn't be doing this, Chloe," he said, flustered, as he flicked on the light and stared at the tearful woman in front of him. Chloe, embarrassed and angry, covered her face and cried, "We spend every day together. Don't you like me?" Alvin's heart was a tangle of confusion. He stood there in silence. He had indeed been attracted to Chloe at one point, but now, he couldn't bring himself to feel anything for her. His mind was consumed by Luna's absence. Seeing him remain silent, Chloe panicked. "Everyone is already saying I'm your wife. You've ruined my reputation. And now you don't want to take responsibility?" Alvin looked at her silently. Chloe's threat left him no room to explain. As the upright factory manager, his reputation was at stake, and this would affect his career. Thinking about how he still had some lingering feelings for Chloe, Alvin decided that he had to forget Luna. Chloe, having so failed wide sigh, seeing his agreement, began to press him to marry her, believing that she had won, pushing Luna out of the picture and claiming Alvin as her own. Even when Alvin chose to sleep on the sofa, it didn't dampen Chloe's triumphant mood. But as the days passed, Chloe grew increasingly frustrated with his mother's constant complaints and Alvin's refusal to sleep with her, filling her with doubt. When she saw Alvin go to the post office to check if Luna had sent a letter, she exploded in anger. Alvin didn't want to argue, but couldn't stand Chloe's mockery of Luna. He snapped back. "Luna never complained like this. Why do you speak about her like that?" Chloe's face turned red with rage as she slapped Alvin across the face. Alvin's mother rushed to intervene but was shoved aside by Chloe, falling and hitting her head. The sight of blood sent a sharp pain through Alvin's chest. Chloe screamed, her hands trembling as she shouted for help. That night, the courtyard was in chaos. With the help of the neighbors, Alvin's mother was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Alvin stood grimly in front of the emergency room, waiting for the doctor to perform the surgery, while Chloe, pale-faced, stood beside him, too afraid to approach. Time passed slowly, and the town's medical facilities were not equipped to handle such a critical situation. Alvin stood motionless, hearing the doctor's apologetic voice, "I'm sorry." The patient had high blood pressure and chronic health issues. The impact caused her cerebrospinous fluid to rupture. Unfortunately, heading for Feldley, we couldn't save her. Chloe's legs buckled, and she collapsed to the ground. She understood then Alvin would never forgive her for this. After the grim duties were handled, Alvin returned home alone late at night. The dark room and the scattered footprints on the floor told a silent story, while dark red bloodstains hinted at what had transpired there. Luna's departure, combined with his mother's death, had left him heartbroken and disillusioned, overwhelmed by a sense of confusion and despair. Why had things turned out this way? Alvin walked into his mother's room to pack her belongings. The doctor's words echoed in his mind, his mother should not have eaten such greasy food, but no one had paid attention. No wonder Luna had always made porridge every morning. No wonder her cooking was always light and healthy. No wonder. As he held his mother's close, his tall figure bent for the first time, and tears streamed down his face. He regretted it. Why hadn't he cherished Luna? Why had he treated her like that? The next day, in the communications room, Alvin found the contact information for Tingshui University in the newspaper. He dialed the long-distance number. "Hello. I'm Luna's husband. Could you please ask her to take the call? I'm Luna. A familiar female voice came from the other end of the line. And Alvin choked up, his emotions surging. It's me. How are you? We no longer have anything to do with each other. Alvin. Please don't call me again. The decisive words on the other end made Alvin's heart freeze. What had once been a fiery passion now turned into a painful knot in his chest. Wife. Luna frowned, a sense of discomfort rising within her. She coldly replied. Alvin, heaven. We never registered. Luna. My mother is going to be buried. Will you come back to see her? Alvin had no choice but to bring up this matter. Luna paused, then answered coldly. I'll send some money back. That's all I can do. I didn't mean that. Alvin, having fulfilled none. We don't have a future anymore. Whether you accept it or not. That's the truth. Luna interrupted him impatiently. Not waiting for his response. She added. Please don't call me again. I won't pick up. Goodbye. She hung up, letting out a sigh of relief. But still feeling uneasy in her heart. She didn't want to be entangled with the past. She had already lost any love for Alvin. Hearing his desolate, pale voice only filled her with annoyance. As if something was clogging up her chest. Luna, are you okay? Julian's worried voice came from beside her. Luna shook her head gently. They walked downstairs side by side. Luna a little distracted. Suddenly, a grasshopper fell in front of her eyes, causing her to flinch in surprise. She looked up at Julian, who was grinning, and couldn't help but smile back. Where did this grasshopper come from? Julian chuckled, saying nothing, as he placed the grasshopper in her arms, then pulled out another piece of grass and began fiddling with it in his hands. His slender fingers danced as if they were performing, and soon another lively grasshopper appeared at his fingertips, making Luna's eyes widen, her mood lifting from before. Luna raised the grasshopper in her hand and praised him. Your skill is incredible. I'm glad you like it. When they were children, Julian had learned this trick from his grandfather, just to entertain Luna. It had always worked. Luna understood he was doing this to cheer her up, and she felt touched. Alvin had never cared about her feelings. This was the first time someone had truly paid attention to her. Julian found his bicycle and waved for Luna to hop on. Come on. Today we're going to scout the market to see where we can open your drink shop. Luna's eyes brightened. Eagerly, having fulfilled Mrad's session, she sat on the back seat, naturally grabbing onto his waist as she responded. Great. I've been wanting to find some time to check it out. Thanks, Uncle. Julian smiled. Then pedaled hard, taking her around the nearby streets. In 1982, only instant milk tea was available on the market, and there were no popular chain brands like those of the 21st century. Luna planned to seize the opportunity by introducing fresh, handmade milk tea as her first venture. Luna kept noting everything down in her notebook. There were many residents near Tsinghua University, and the foot traffic was high, but most businesses around there were either restaurants or coffee shops. After some discussion, they decided on a location near the intersection of an elementary and middle school, not far from Tsinghua. It was an ideal space for a store. The 50-square-meter store would cost only 6 yuan a month to rent, affordable for Luna. Julian helped her calculate costs for labor, decoration, and other preparations. She would need at least 100 yuan in her budget to open the store. During their lunch at a noodle shop, where they spent just 2 yuan on a fragrant bowl of noodles, Julian casually suggested, I'm thinking of investing in your milk tea shop. What do you think? Luna was stunned. If Julian joined, as a university professor with a steady job, he would be able to gain more trust from others. It would increase the chances of successfully renting the shop. She was thrilled. Julian had already helped her investigate the market and even taken her on an outing to scout locations. She had always planned to offer him a share in the business as a token of thanks. It would be wonderful if you joined. Julian smiled charmingly. I'm just glad you don't mind. They were a perfect match. Luna would handle the milk tea recipes, and Julian would leverage his connections to secure a stable supply of ingredients. Days passed by. Luna spent her time writing and sketching in her dorm. As she waved goodbye to her roommates, she realized the next day would be New Year's Eve. The empty room made her pause. lost in thought. In previous years, Luna would have already bought groceries to cook, waiting for Alvin's return amidst his mother's incessant chatter. She shook her head, pushing the past aside. Even though she was alone now, she had earned enough money through her own hard work and felt content. The sun slanted through the window, and the only sound was the scratching of her pencil on paper. Luna. A familiar male voice called from outside the window. Luna stood up in surprise and hurried to the window. She saw a familiar figure standing downstairs. It was Julian. He cupped his hands around his mouth and called up to her. Luna, come home for the new year. Luna's heart jolted. She felt a mixture of warmth and embarrassment as she rushed downstairs, forgetting to grab anything. Stop calling. Stop calling. Julian, what? Seeing her face flushed red, chuckled and reassured her. It's fine, having fulfilled my MSI. All the other students have gone home, and no one else was around to deliver my message. So I had to call you this way. I'm just going upstairs to grab my things. I'll be right back, Luna said, feeling a little embarrassed. She saw Julian nod and hurried upstairs to pull out her small suitcase. While packing, Luna was surprised to find that her belongings had increased. What started as a few changes of clothes when she first arrived had now grown into sweaters and jackets she had designed herself, as well as various scarves and gloves, all items she had made for herself this month. Flipping through her old cloth shoes, Luna smiled at the pair of warm new shoes on her feet, a gift from Julian in exchange for the wooden bracelet. There were also the fragrant balms from her roommate and the teacup a classmate had gifted her. Luna's heart swelled with warmth and happiness. Once again, she felt incredibly grateful for this second chance at life, for the kind people she had met along the way. She was going to stay at her uncle's place for a couple of days, then return. On New Year's Eve and during the spring festival, the gatekeeper would be off, and the school would be closed. Luna had been using the school's lab these past few days to work on the recipe, and she had almost perfected the taste of the syrup. She couldn't wait to make it for Julian to taste during the holiday and see if people from this era would enjoy it. Luna quickly made her way downstairs. As she reached the bottom, Julian took her suitcase from her hands. Let's go. The seminar ran too long, and we need to hurry to buy the New Year's goods, Julian said, beaming, full of energy as he walked ahead, prompting Luna to quickly follow. No time for her to be modest. Don't worry. I've done this before. I'll handle the shopping, Luna replied. Julian nodded. No problem. I'll just carry the bags. When they reached their bicycles, Luna skillfully climbed onto the back seat, mentally planning what to have for dinner that evening. But just as they were about to leave the school gate, something unexpected happened. Luna. A disheveled man appeared in front of the bike, nearly causing Julian to crash into him, forcing him to slam on the brakes. Luna didn't have time to react and was thrown onto Julian's back, managing to steady herself only by gripping onto him. To her shock, the man standing in front of them was Alvin. Julian's first instinct was to steady the bike, ensuring Luna was safe before letting out a breath of relief, his expression turning to one of anger as he looked at the man in front of them. Comrade. This is dangerous, Julian said coldly, his voice sharp in a way Luna had never heard before. I'm looking for Luna. Could you please move aside? Alvin didn't back down, though his stance in front of Julian, who was standing tall and composed, only made him appear like he was posturing. Alvin let out a low sigh. What are you doing here? Luna's previously cheerful mood was shattered, and her face showed no kindness toward him. I came to find you because I was worried. Who is he? Why are you sitting on his bike? Alvin tried to make his expression seem calm, but after seeing them laughing together and riding on the same bike, his frustration boiled over. He couldn't stop himself from charging forward to block them. Luna almost wanted to laugh at his questions. Her voice icy as she responded. I don't need your unnecessary concern. I'm doing fine. And I've told you before, we have no more contact. Alvin, you don't take me seriously. Alvin's face drained of color, looking at Luna, dressed in a stylish new jacket with a healthy glow. He almost didn't recognize her as the same woman who used to wear thick coats and braided her hair every day at home. She really was doing well. A mix of guilt and jealousy churned inside him. Alvin didn't believe that she bought the clothes herself. It must be that this refined young man had bought them for her. They'd only been apart for such a short time. And yet, she was already with someone else. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Alvin stepped forward, attempting to grab Luna. But Julian's quick reflexes pushed him away. His voice cold with warning. "Comrade. I advise you to calm down. If you harm a woman, you'll go to jail." The threat made Alvin pull his hand back, his eyes flashing with pain as he looked at the well-dressed Julian standing protectively in front of Luna. Their closeness stung his eyes and pierced his heart. There was a time when Alvin had been the town's most eligible bachelor, with long lines of people vying for his attention. Now, he was in this humiliating situation. He took a step forward, staring at Julian with a hard gaze, and threatened, "You think she's such a treasure? Luna slept in the same bed as me. Do you still want her?" Luna's face turned pale, her eyes filling with anger as she glared at the venomous man before her. She never imagined Alvin would say something like this. For a moment, she feared that Julian might misunderstand and distance himself from her. But the man in front of her stood tall, his voice firm and loud. "A modern woman will never be bound by futile thinking. If she doesn't want to be with someone, she leaves. I don't think she's done anything wrong." Julian's resolute words pierced through Luna's thoughts, sending a shockwave through her heart. Her mind was a whirl of emotions. She looked at the man standing in front of her, who hadn't moved an inch, resolutely shielding her from all harm. Despite having no blood relation to her, no obligation to care for her after their grandparents passed, Julian had still come. He had stayed by her side, helping her adjust to this unfamiliar city, supporting her as she opened a shop to stabilize her income, and protecting her from past hurts. In her previous life, it was Julian who had stepped in when Alvin passed away, coming to her aid when she didn't know how to move forward. His old face had reached out to her, helping her through the sorrow. The image of Julian from her past overlapped with the man standing before her now, and Luna couldn't stop the tears that began to fall. Seeing Alvin speechless, Julian continued sternly, "If you keep harassing Luna, I'll report you to the police. You're endangering her safety." Alvin was genuinely scared this time. He was unwilling but had no way to argue. He muttered defensively, "I haven't threatened anyone. I just came to check on my wife." "Enough!" Luna shouted, tears streaming down her face as she fiercely cut him off. "I have no ties to you anymore. I don't love you." "Alvin!" Alvin was rendered speechless, his eyes stinging from her hateful gaze. With tears in his eyes, he whispered, "If I beg you, will you come back to me?" Luna gave a cold laugh, wiping away her tears without hesitation, and responded firmly, "Not even if I die, will I come back to you." Alvin staggered backward, gasping as he looked at the cold, indifferent pair before him. Unable to hide his shame, he quickly turned and left. For the first time, Luna regretted ever having loved someone like him for so long. Her tears fell like a broken string, and she couldn't bear to look up at Julian's expression. Fighting back the urge to cry, she struggled to hide her shame. The next moment, a pair of strong arms wrapped around her, pulling her into a wide embrace. Luna's eyes wide, and as she sank into Julian's arms, feeling as though time had stopped, Julian held Luna close, his arms tight around her, and whispered softly, "It's okay. You're the best." Luna was pulled out of her thoughts by Julian's gentle voice, and as she leaned into his embrace, tears began to pour down her face. As if all the grievances she had bottled up from her past life were finally spilling out, Julian lowered his body to hug her, his gaze sharp and determined, but his words soft and firm. "I won't let him harass you again. Don't worry." Luna responded with a sob, her tears flowing uncontrollably. The more she was comforted, the more she couldn't help but feel vulnerable. She allowed herself a moment of weakness, craving the warmth of his embrace. After a while, Luna got a low sigh. Her face flushed, gently pulled away, and Julian reluctantly let her go. "Let's go." Seeing that she had calmed down, Julian smiled as he pushed the bike. "Let's go." The market in Beijing was huge and bustling. The wide road was lined with red lanterns, with buildings on both sides housing all sorts of shops. Stalls were set up along the street, and the scene was even grander than Luna had imagined. Wan Yang Pujiu Hui Money Exchange, Ginseng Deer Antler, Wan Shi Tong, Potted Plant Viewing. Julian walked protectively beside Luna through the crowd. It was so packed that the two were occasionally pushed apart, making him anxious. When they were separated again, Luna nearly stumbled. Just as she suggested they move to the side, a warm, large hand enveloped hers. Luna's heart skipped a beat as she looked down at his long fingers, each one tightening around her palm. Her face turned a deep red. Julian's heartbeat raced as he held her soft hand, and when he confirmed she wasn't pulling away, he couldn't help but smile, tightening his grip even more. They silently held hands amidst the crowd, no longer concerned about being separated. They found the right stall and gathered the ingredients for milk tea and the New Year's goods. They also bought fresh milk and tea leaves in various types, which could be used to create different flavors of milk tea. As evening fell, they finally arrived at Julian's house, laden with bags. It turned out to be a small, standalone courtyard, close to a main intersection, making it easy to come and go. The yard was very tidy, with a main house and a kitchen, and a large central area filled with small flower pots, some of which still had snow on them. On the other side, there was a parking area for a motorcycle and a car. Noticing Luna's surprised gaze, Julian parked his bike and scratched his head, explaining, "I couldn't drive today, too many people on the road. Not safe. So I used the bike." Luna hadn't expected her uncle to be so well off considering it was only 1982. He could afford a car. She was impressed. Julian brought the bags into the kitchen, casually pushing his damp hair back, and said with a smile, "In a few days, when it's not so crowded, we can go for a drive." Luna nodded, rolling up her sleeves to start cooking. As evening fell, a small kitchen filled with the aroma of cooking, and the alley outside started to smell of delicious food. As Luna chopped the vegetables, she watched Julian stir-frying with skill, a sense of warmth filling her heart that she had never felt before. This was her first New Year with someone by her side, not the one-sided waiting she had endured in her past life, but a mutual effort, a partnership. This was the kind of warmth she had never experienced before. Once the meal was ready, Julian carried the dishes into the living room. The loud noise from the television caught Luna's attention. There was a colorful Ginseng brand TV. Luna couldn't imagine how much money Julian must be making. Just the things in his home proved he was doing quite well. Her heart swelled with excitement and admiration. Luna wanted to be like him, to earn a lot of money and become financially independent. Gentle wind softly blew, and you stepped into my heart in the blink of an eye. You changed my life. Zhu Xiaofening's melodious voice rang out from the television, while the two of them in the living room chatted happily. Julian kept praising her cooking, even having 2 bowls of rice, which made Luna a little embarrassed. "If you like it, eat more. I really appreciate all the care you've given me these past days." He simply smiled. "It's nothing. Whatever you need, just ask. No need to be polite." Luna stopped the pleasantries. Taking out the ingredient list and the freshly made milk tea she had prepared, she placed it in front of him, eagerly awaiting his feedback. Julian looked at the brown liquid with the rich fragrance of tea, the thick milk having fulfilled my absai, tea leaves and syrup blended perfectly, and the sweet flavor that touched his tongue made him nod in approval. "Big success. This will definitely be a hit." Before he had even finished speaking, the sound of fireworks exploded from outside the window, and Luna, who had been calming down, couldn't help but laugh. "It's going to succeed." Looking at Julian's smiling face, he suddenly grabbed her hand and pulled her outside into the yard, handing her some firecrackers and leading the way in setting them off. Before Luna could even respond to being held by him, she heard the loud bang as the firecracker went off. Wishing Luna a prosperous new year, full of health and happiness. Julian held the firecracker in his hand, and the colorful fireworks burst open in his smiling eyes, seemingly carrying some unspoken emotion. Luna stared at his sincere face, unable to hide the fluttering in her heart. "Oh no. It seemed like she was developing feelings for her uncle. That night, Luna slept in the guest room. Although it was an unfamiliar environment, she slept soundly. The next morning, Julian returned with sesame cakes and tofu pudding. The steaming hot, local flavors filling the air. Happy New Year, Luna. Julian was in a great mood. He wore a bright red sweater and black pants. His V-shaped figure clearly visible. Luna's heart skipped a beat as she watched him in his new clothes. Happy New Year, she replied. Julian stopped her from packing, swiftly grabbing all the things and packing them into a trash bag. He then picked up a black leather jacket and suggested, "Since we have the day off, how about we take a stroll around Beijing?" Luna was a little surprised when she saw Julian pause to think for a moment before agreeing. He quickly went into the room, and after a while, came out. Julian brought the motorcycle out, wiped the two helmets clean, and when he looked up, he froze, staring at Luna. She had let her hair down, braiding the sides of her forehead and securing them at the back of her head, while the rest of her long, curly hair and loose strands playfully swayed on her cheeks in the wind. She wore a warm yellow turtleneck sweater under a duck-down jacket, and she looked stunningly graceful. Luna felt a little embarrassed under his gaze. "What's wrong?" she asked. Julian hastily looked away, putting on his helmet to cover his reddened ears, and complimented her. "Luna, you look so beautiful. If I keep staring, I might fall in love." Luna's face instantly turned bright red. She tried to mask the pounding in her chest and scolded him. "Julian." The man chuckled softly, picked up the helmet, and walked closer, gently placing it on her head and securing it. Luna, her face flushed, held the helmet, surprised that it fit perfectly, though she was distracted by his proximity. Julian glanced down at her shy expression, fighting the fluttering in his chest. He mounted the motorcycle and called her. "Come on." She placed her foot on the step and swung onto the back seat, only to realize the height difference. There was no place to hold on, and the seat was considerably higher than a bicycle. She instinctively grabbed his coat, feeling a little flustered. Julian, with a playful grin, caught her hand and placed it around his waist, revving the engine and speeding off. "Julian." Luna barely had time to grab onto his lean waist, feeling an exhilarating rush unlike anything she'd ever experienced. The sound of the wind and the roar of the engine made her instinctively close her eyes, her heart racing uncontrollably. She heard Julian's muffled laugh through the wind. "Don't be afraid. We're not going fast. Want to open your eyes?" Luna hesitantly opened her eyes and was stunned by the scenery around them. They were outside the Forbidden City's moat, with beautiful roof eaves soaring above the walls. The vibrant colors were far more striking than she had ever seen, even more vivid than after decades of oxidation. She relaxed her grip slightly, finally tilting her head to admire the view. The ancient Beijing city, with its many old houses, felt alive with the contrast of aged buildings and vibrant people. The scene was breathtaking. Eventually, Julian stopped the bike at Beihai Park, helped Luna off the bike, and laughed when he saw her slightly embarrassed. Noticing her discontent, he gently took her hand and led her forward. "Let's go. Let's try ice skating." Beihai Park, covered in snow, was stunning. Luna, blushing, was pulled along by his hand. The ice rink was nearby, and the white pagoda loomed in the distance, its spire sharp against the sky, creating a picturesque, serene atmosphere. Luna didn't know how to skate, but Julian gently guided her hand in hand. His eyes and touch were so tender that Luna's ears turned red from the cold, yet his warmth made her feel at ease. As they held hands, Luna wanted to say something, but the words stuck in her throat. Slowly, she began to pick up the rhythm, smiling joyfully as she followed his lead. Julian, Lin La Tao, watching her shy smile, could no longer suppress his feelings. His voice was earnest as he spoke. "Luna, I don't want to be your uncle anymore." Luna's heart skipped a beat. She looked up, meeting his intense gaze, feeling as though it had seared into her very soul. They gradually slowed down and stopped in the middle of the rink, facing each other. Julian, slightly nervous, cleared his throat. His voice was rough, as if this was the most nerve-wracking moment of his life. More so than any public presentation. I like you. Luna. Luna felt as if she had been struck by a heavy blow to the heart. Her face turned bright red, and she stared at him in shock. It felt like fireworks had exploded in her ears. And she was at a loss for words. Unsure how to respond. Seeing her blush deeply, Julian smiled. Relieved that she didn't reject him. His own face was slightly flushed as well. Unable to handle his smile, Luna raised her fist and lightly punched him in the chest, but he caught her hand, gently kissing it at the lips. The softness of his touch made her widen her eyes in surprise. Curious and embarrassed, she called out his name. Julian. He chuckled. Luna, would you accept this older man? A few years your senior? Luna was amused by his teasing and gently held his hand, whispering softly. You're not an old man. I'd be happy to. Julian was overjoyed. He pulled her into his arms and skated a couple of circles before lifting her off the ground and spinning her around, laughing. Luna, shy at first, couldn't help but join him in the laughter. By the time they returned to the courtyard in the evening, hand in hand, they exchanged goodnight wishes. Luna, lying in bed, replayed the day's events in her mind. She buried herself under the blanket, kicking her feet in excitement, trying to muffle the scream that threat and to escape her lips. She had lived an entire lifetime before, but she had never experienced being loved like this. How could it be so sweet? So beautiful? Almost suffocating with joy, Luna finally stuck her head out of the blanket, exhaling a puff of white air and staring at the ceiling. Unable to sleep. Tomorrow, she'd have to go back to school, and though she felt a little sad to part so soon, she was excited about the shop she was preparing to open. Julian would be renting and decorating a place soon, setting up the equipment in preparation for the opening. His reliability put Luna at ease. And she still felt a little like she was floating in a dream. She had never imagined that the Julian, who had never married in his past life, would have feelings for her. Then, let out a low sigh. A thought struck her. Remembering that after getting her contact details in her past life, Julian would always message her during holidays. Could it be that in her past life? Shook off the unhelpful thought and focused on the present. Let the past be gone with the wind. The exhaustion of the day soon caught up with her, and Luna fell into a deep, contented sleep. Meanwhile, Alvin was enveloped in a boundless sense of loneliness. After a long train ride back home, exhausted and hungry, he found his house empty and desolate. The neighbors' laughter stung his ears, making his eyes redden. The home he had once refused to return to now felt so unfamiliar. Without the key people, it no longer felt like home. The next day, Julian rode his bicycle to take Luna back to school. At the base of the stairs, he gave her one last piece of advice. If anything happens, let me know. You can also call her in the future. After class, Luna started setting up a small stall at school, selling handmade accessories and promoting her milk tea. A new flavor was like a breeze blowing through the campus, piquing the curiosity of the students, who were eager to try something fresh. The term pearl milk tea sparked a small wave of excitement among the crowd. February 4th, the grand opening day. Luna put on a new outfit and headed to the store early, reminding her staff to set up the pre-prepared ingredients and display various samples in front of the shop. Julian, let out a low sigh, dressed in a red coat, matched Luna's red scarf, symbolizing the hopes for their business's success. The entrance was adorned with many flowers, all bought by Julian. Beneath the red cloth was the name they had decided on together. As the firecrackers went off, Luna pulled the cloth down, revealing the golden shop name, Luna's Tea. Julian laughed. He was firm about the name, while Luna thought it resembled a popular tea brand from her past life. Though it could fit in with the ads simple and memorable, she had no objections. At first, many people were confused about what kind of shop it was. They thought it was just a regular tea shop selling tea leaves. But soon, Manava low sigh. The rich aroma of milk tea filled the street, and Luna put up a sign with the explosive special offer, at the most prominent spot, drawing the attention of passers-by. For the first week of opening, they offered a special price. The usual 1.5 per cup of pearl milk tea was now only 90 cents. Some people thought it was still too expensive. But younger girls approached and bought a cup. The unfamiliar drink, with its never-before-seen color and sweet aroma, intrigued them. After tasting a sip, their eyes lit up with excitement. They exclaimed, "It's so delicious." Once one person took the plunge, a line started to form, with more and more curious customers joining in. The taste was new to everyone, but it exploded with flavor in their mouths, filling them with a sweet, pleasant sensation. And just like that, Luna's tea became an overnight sensation. On the first day, the store sold out in just a few hours, much faster than Luna had anticipated. They had to hire 2 more employees to help manage the store, restock, and handle the growing crowd. Only then did the business stabilize. By the 5th day, the influence of the milk tea was spreading rapidly across Beijing. It had set a new trend, and anyone who hadn't tried it yet was considered out of touch. Even celebrities were lining up for their cups, and news outlets soon followed the buzz, reporting on the craze. Luna never imagined she would be featured in a financial news article. Luna's tea was now a viral success, spreading far beyond the city. Tourists from Shanghai and Hong Kong came specifically to try the tea, all of them praising its sweet flavor. Luna, thinking back to the most popular check-in spots from her previous life, used the money she earned to buy a camera, which she placed at the front of the store. People who bought a drink could get an official photo with a Luna's tea background. Even those who left Beijing could take home a souvenir photo. This new trend, the Luna's tea check-in spot, caused another wave of excitement, and the local police had to send officers to maintain order to avoid any accidents caused by the crowd. With fame came imitation. Soon, Leonardo Sai. Other businesses started to try to copy the milk tea formula, but none could replicate the exact taste. They only managed to mix milk and tea leaves together, but something about the flavor was always missing. Luna wasn't worried about the imitations. She coined the term, official authentic product, to help people understand. When interviewed, she responded with a smile. 100 flowers blooming is the normal state. Everyone can choose what they like. Luna's tea has its own flavor. And as long as people recognize the official product, that's all that matters. Luna's open and optimistic attitude earned her the favor of many buyers. She had already applied for the certification as the first milk tea shop in the country, and the local businesses trying to imitate her couldn't keep up. Julian's security team even caught a thief who tried to sneak into the shop at night to steal the recipe. After all, the shop was making so much money, and it made people envious. For the next half-month, whenever Luna left the school, Julian would accompany her, always cautious of any extreme actions someone might take. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. During those 3 years, Luna's tea continued to thrive, even opening a factory to store and process the incoming materials. Julian personally supervised the operation of the factory. The milk tea shop provided excellent employment opportunities and benefits, and it helped increase the employment rate for many unemployed people. With the government's support for these initiatives, Luna even managed to secure a Beijing residency permit, officially settling in the big city. Throughout these 3 years, Luna's academic performance never dropped. During the busiest times, Julian helped run the shop. The two of them became well known at school, and their hard-working relationship was acknowledged by the students. One of Luna's female classmates, when interviewed, mentioned how she often saw Luna's determined silhouette late at night, which inspired and motivated her. Luna had become a great role model for the new generation of women. As graduation approached, Luna completed her final thesis defense. After taking a deep breath, she entered the classroom to begin her presentation. When she finally received her official stamp of approval, she smiled and left the room, walking toward the tall young man who was waiting for her outside. Julian was leaning against his Czechoslovaki and Jawa 350, wearing a black leather jacket, his hair swept back to reveal his broad forehead. Underneath, he wore a red turtleneck sweater and casual pants, exuding a rugged charm that had all the girls on the street stopping in their tracks. When Luna approached, his usually indifferent expression softened, and he smiled gently. "Let's go. We're celebrating your success tonight." We're going to have a big dinner. Luna was infected by his enthusiasm, smiling as she responded, putting on her helmet, and naturally wrapping her arms around his waist to enjoy the cool evening breeze. These were their 3 years together, with no arguments. Julian was emotionally stable, always focused on solving problems, never losing his temper. He taught Luna how to handle sudden issues more calmly. Time had only strengthened their bond, and nothing could drive a wedge between them. The next morning, Luna dressed up in a white dress she had made herself, wearing lipstick and curling her hair. She grabbed a small bag and stepped out. Julian was waiting for her by the off-road vehicle, wearing a gray-black jacket with a white shirt underneath, and a loose, irregular brown tie that made him look effortlessly stylish. As soon as he saw Luna, he straightened up and walked toward her, quickly taking her handbag and whispering in her ear, "Luna, you're so beautiful. I just can't take my eyes off you." Luna, feeling shy, pushed him lightly. They laughed together as they got into the car and drove off to visit the Great Wall at Battling. While climbing the mountain, some people recognized Luna as the owner of Luna's Tea and asked for a photo with her, which she happily agreed to. Julian teased her. "Our Luna is becoming quite the celebrity now. You'll have to pay attention to your image when you're out in public." They exchanged a glance and burst into laughter. Julian climbed to the highest point and handed his camera, which he had been carrying all the way, to a woman nearby, asking her to take a photo of them together. Luna smiled and wrapped her arms around his, and Julian grinned brightly in return. The woman took several photos, then couldn't help but compliment them. "You two are such a handsome couple. Truly a happy pair of newlyweds." Luna's face flushed, but the man replied loudly, "You're absolutely right, Auntie." Seeing that Julian, at 31, still looked as energetic as a young man, Luna couldn't help but smile secretly. At the state-owned restaurant, Julian took Luna's hand and led her into a private room he had reserved in advance. As they sat down to eat, they chatted about the operations of their bubble tea shop. Despite the flood of other shops opening in Beijing over the past 3 years, Luna's Tea still maintained its reputation as the very first in the country, a position that was solid and unshakable. Suddenly, the lights went out, leaving Luna stunned in her seat. The room was bathed only in the soft glow of candlelight, and the door gently opened. Julian, dressed in a suit, walked toward her, holding a bouquet of flowers. He knelt on one knee. Behind him, a staff member brought in a 3-tiered cake, the warm candlelight dancing on their faces. Luna's heart began to race as she stared at him, her breath catching as he spoke softly. "Luna, do you know? When I saw your name on the admission letter, my heart was drawn to you deeply, igniting a burning flame. To me, cut out a low sigh. You are as radiant as the stars, and I can't look away. I'm grateful to meet you again in this lifetime. I want to spend my entire life protecting you and loving you." Julian opened a small red box, revealing a ring inside. With sincere eyes, he softly asked, "Luna, will you marry me?" Luna instinctively covered her lips, her eyes red as she looked at him. She nodded gently. "Yes, Kazasa. I will." Julian's ears turned pink, and he gently took her hand, sliding the ring onto her 4th finger. Both of them smiled, and the surrounding staff sprinkled glitter and raised cameras to capture the moment. The shutter clicked, capturing the joyous moment. Time flew by, and a year passed. Throughout that year, Julian kept his promise, surprising her with little gestures of affection every day. Sometimes, when he wasn't around, he would send her photos of the two of them together along with a romantic note, expressing his love. There were times when Julian would bring a small bouquet of flowers and a poem to make Luna laugh with delight. After taking over full management of the bubble tea shop, Luna also launched a co-branded clothing line, Luna's Wardrobe. As she expanded her bubble tea shop distribution, she also focused on public welfare promotions and poverty alleviation efforts. On television appearances, she would wear clothes she designed herself, advertising her clothing shop while showcasing her work. Her shop quickly grew into a chain, with affordable prices and stylish designs that became trendy. Even female celebrities came to her for custom-made outfits. some of which were worn on television, making Luna feel incredibly proud. Julian, too, didn't have much free time. He achieved groundbreaking research in computer science, winning the first prize in technology achievements from the National Defense Industry Committee, making an important contribution to the country. When they got married, their story appeared on the front pages of several newspapers, and the couple received an outpouring of well wishes from the public. For years past. Meanwhile, Alvin's life had not progressed. He was still entangled with Chloe. He didn't want to be with the woman who had caused so much pain to his mother, yet he couldn't bear the loneliness and isolation. Sometimes, when he came across news reports about Luna, he would secretly keep them, not realizing that Chloe had discovered them. This led to a huge fight, making everything even worse. One day, cutting fulfilled Ryan sigh, Alvin found out that Chloe had started seeing another man, and he could no longer tolerate her. He filed for divorce. In the end, Alvin was left alone, his reputation tarnished. His position at the factory was revoked after a report against him, and Chloe agreed to the divorce only after his downfall. Alvin saw her selfishness clearly and realized just how much of a fool he had been. He had ignored the valuable pearl, blinded by a sesame seed. In the still of the night, Alvin had a dream. He dreamed that he and Luna were together for a lifetime, but he never cherished her. Behind her back, he had married Chloe and was reluctant to return home, leaving Luna alone. In the dream, he struggled desperately to break free, but he could only watch as he broke Luna's heart. Suddenly waking up, Alvin gasped for air, clutching a rusted iron box to his chest. Tears of regret fell from his eyes as he hugged the only thing left that connected him to Luna. He cried alone in his room. It was too late. The beautiful woman was gone, and the past could never be relived. Alvin would spend the rest of his life regretting the choices he had made. Meanwhile, in Beijing, on their wedding night, Julian lay beside Luna, who was asleep in his arms. He gazed deeply at her profile, his hand gently caressing her hair. He whispered softly, "After 2 lifetimes, I finally waited for you."